So my paper is soaked at least overnight. You can soak it longer if you want to. And then what you'll do for this, I know there are so many videos out there about how to make paper, and so I'm just sharing my process with you in case you're interested, and how I found that it works for me. I dump it in the blender. I bought this blender just for making paper. I don't want to use my food blender to do the paper. And I just got this one from Amazon for, I think it was $20. I looked at the used stores for blenders and I couldn't find one, so I just went ahead and ordered a fairly inexpensive one from Amazon. Just go ahead and empty out all of your soaked paper into your blender. And then I fill this up the rest of the way with water. And then I just put it on the blend setting until it gets nice and blended. I just kind of pulse it instead of letting it run really hard and fast. That way I'm hoping I'll save the life of my blender. And then just check it and blend it until it's pretty much like a paste. I love the idea of this being able to recycle paper, reuse paper instead of throwing it away. Then you pour it into your bin. You need to have a bin that's going to be deep enough so you can slide your mold and decal in there. And I wanted to say about these that I told you I was going to make and I showed you. I did go ahead and do that. I put the screen on here. This is a vinyl screen and I just put it on with a staple gun. But these will work for a time or two, and I made some paper with them and it did come out fine. But these are press board, so they're not going to hold up over time. But they would work if you're just trying to get started and see if you enjoy making paper, if you want to do it anymore. Then if you had any of these around, you wouldn't have to buy anything else. I purchased a set of paper making mold and decals. I got 3 different sizes, and this is what they look like. And this is a plastic screen, and it came with a sponge, this little sponge. I really need a bigger sponge for this bigger screen, but anyway, I've been making it work for now. So I just wanted to say that real quick. And then just fill your blender up with water, and I don't have exact measurements to give you. I've just been practicing and playing around with it. So for one blender basically full of the paper, I'm going to put 3 blenders full of water. And now for one of the fun parts, you get to add your additives. I'm going to add some of this colored glitter. It's multicolored. I'm just going to sprinkle quite a bit in here. The last batch, I sprinkled some gold in there, and I think I didn't add enough, so I'm going to put quite a bit in there. I've had this glitter forever, so now I'm finally getting to use it. And if you remember from the craft haul, I got these little stars from the Dollar Tree. And I don't know what will happen with them, if they'll, oh, it looks like they're gonna float. I was afraid they would sink, but it looks like they're gonna float, so that's good. And I have some used tea bags. I'm gonna put some tea grounds in it. You can just use whatever you have. These are just some of the things that would work. And then from my Sorry Silk, I ended up pulling off these little tiny little filaments that just were hanging off of the pieces, and saved them. They're such pretty colors, and I'm just going to be chopping them up in here. This is what I saved them for. I guess you could use thread for this too, just regular thread, different colors, one color. I'm just mixing it in between, adding things to be sure I get enough in there of each element. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more string. And then I bought a box of flowers. I didn't know exactly what I was going to be getting, but I got this whole box of dried flowers for $9, and I was very pleased with that. I thought it was a really good price. Now these were my mother's purple flowers, and I used some of those in my last batch, but everything else in this box was $9. And I'm going to use these jasmine blossoms. Just put some of those in there. Just kind of smash them up a bit. And you can always add more of the flowers as you go. I would suggest, based on my experience, not to add just a whole lot of them at first, because then you'll have pages that are kind of covered in them, unless you just want that look. But I like a little bit more sparse look, so I'm not going to add a whole bunch right at first. And I'm also going to add a few of these forget-me-nots. And they have a kind of a thick bud type of thing there. I don't know if you call that a bud, but I'm going to take them out of that. It'll just be easier to cut them out. They're a little bit hard to pull out. And if you remember our little confetti we made a little bit of it in that last haul video. I'm just going to put some of the pink hearts in there. And I also got these pressed flowers. These will probably be best put on individually. And I opened this pack, so after we get our piece out of the slurry, maybe we'll put a couple of these on it. Now I'm going to be moving the paper after I take it out of here to a cutting board that's covered with a couple of these shop towels that I bought. I got 150 of these, and you need a bunch of them if you're working with this paper, because you need to swap them out after you put your paper on here. Then you'll want to get some dry ones on top, and so you're going to layer and put a lot of the dry towels on top. So I was really glad I went ahead and got 150 of them, and they wash up nicely. These have all been washed. I've been using them quite a bit. I'm using just plain plastic cutting boards. So this is the mold, this is the decal, and you want the mold with the screen side facing up towards you. And then you put your decal on top like this. And just line it up and stir between each dip to be sure you get even distribution of all your little goodies that you've put in there. Even stirring it, sometimes it's hard to get it even. I found it was for me. So then you want to just dip it in like this, go straight in and under, and then pull it straight up like that, and tip it to strain it. Just let the water drip off. Your first few pieces will be pretty thick, and then it gets thinner as you go. So if you have several different containers that you could go ahead and prepare some paper that's soaked overnight, then you could just keep adding some more if you want to keep going in one session. Otherwise, you'll have to start over, and I'll show you at the end how you can save your slurry and not waste it if you don't end up using it all at one time. And then wipe off the excess and just let it fall back into your pan off of this decal here. Then come to your spot where you have it set up with your cutting board and your pieces of cloth over top. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 sheets here, and that way the absorbency can be better. You don't have to do that. You could just use 1 sheet, but I've decided to use 4. And then you just want to flip it over like this and start absorbing the water out with your sponge. And as you absorb the water out, the paper will start to release from your screen. And I just put the water, I just squeeze it into the blender. What I forgot to do was take my decal off, so that is bad. Don't do what I did and forget to take your decal off. That will ruin it. These things happen, no big deal. You just gather it back up. And put it back in. And rinse your mold and decal off. Okay, let's try this again. Now, go back down in like we did before, underneath, and then pull it back up. And I'll pick right back up with you where we left off. Just be sure your towels are flat, otherwise you will end up with wrinkles in the same spots wherever your towels have wrinkles, which is okay as long as it's not just huge wrinkles, which I don't want huge wrinkles in it. But now let's remove the decal, and you just pull straight up like that, take it off. Let's try this again. If you have any flowers or anything that's left on the back of the screen, you can just put them back in your slurry. And all right, this time, let's do this again. Just go back around and remove that excess water. The paper always looks a lot darker when it's wet, and it dries a lot lighter. And then you'll just kind of start picking up on the screen little bits and little spots. And I've picked up right here, and I notice it's starting to release there. So I'm going to go ahead and slowly try to release it. And if there's spots that don't want to release, it needs to be pressed down some more and remove more water. And there we go. And see, your screen is nice and clean. All the paper comes off, transfers to the cloth. You can put another towel over top of it. You can take a roller and roll some of the water out. And when this dries, it's going to release right off of the towel. It doesn't seem like it will when you're working with it, but it does. As soon as it gets dry, it just starts releasing, and then once it's fully dry, it peels right off. And then you can put another dry towel over top of it. And set it aside, and then as you go, you can keep stacking them, but I like to use a clean surface here and not be stacking on top of this, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say. I am going to swap this out. So now each piece I'll add over there to add to my drying stack, but I'm gonna lay them here and get them off of the mold here and then move them. Okay, so let's do another one, and then we'll add a few of these words to it and maybe one or two of these flowers before we flip it. And I definitely found it best to rinse the mold and decal between each dipping. Otherwise, it's hard to get the paper to release. So I use a spray hose at the sink and just spray this out really well. And then you'll want to mix this each time that you do it. Okay, and so once you get it mixed again, just do the same thing over, go down and come out pretty quick. And you don't want to shake it around a lot in there or it will mess it up. So just dip it and then bring it back out. So I thought I was recording and I realized I wasn't, but what I did was take these little words that I've cut out, and I just cut them out of a book. Actually, I didn't cut them, I ripped them out of a book, and then I've just dabbed them in, placed them in, and gently tucked them into the paper. And then I have these flowers, and I'm just going to tuck a few of these in as well. Okay. Then we'll do the same thing, just turning it over and pressing out all the water. These will need to dry at least overnight, and if you separate them after they've had a chance to dry a bit and just kind of lay them out in a sunny area, then they will dry a little bit faster. Or if you're really patient, you can just leave them stacked up and let them dry at their own pace. But I get impatient, so I take them apart after I get all my pages made and they've dried overnight. I take them apart and place each one in a sunny space so it can dry a little bit faster. So it's starting to lift up in this corner, so just want to kind of work from that area. I didn't spend a lot on this set that I bought off of Amazon because I wasn't sure. I know that you can buy them from a paper making shop. I can't remember the name of it right now, but there is one online, and the supplies are quite, it's an investment. So before I made that big investment, I wanted to be sure that this was something that I thought I could stick with and do. And here is a little trick that I did. I don't know that I'm necessarily recommending that you do this, because I did mess up a few times, and so do this at your own risk, but it does help to release the paper if you put a spatula underneath there and just slide it along. But I'm just learning, and I'm sharing my process with you, and I hope you find it helpful. Maybe be inspired to make some of your own. Okay, here we go. All right. And then, like I was saying, I just pick it up and move it to my other station where I'm keeping all my completed papers. And then I just repeat the process until I use up all of my slurry. Okay, once you get to the end of your paper making session, you'll notice that your slurry gets mostly to be water, and your paper is going to be really, really thin if you try to keep on using this like that. So you would need to add more pulp to it if you want to continue, or you can save this until next time. And here's an example of one that I've saved from the last time I was doing this. This is still wet, and all you'll have to do is just re-wet this, and it will melt right back into this form. So that's a great way to not waste, and then you can just store these in a container somewhere. And I'll just show you quickly how I do this. I have this strainer here. I just got it at the Dollar Tree. It's not really big. It's the medium size one that I got there. And then I just pour this into it, and I go kind of slow to be sure that I don't just overflow it. The more pulp that's left in your water, the slower you have to go. Some people recommended using liquid starch, adding a little bit of that. And some people recommended using linters. I didn't use either one of those things for this. I might try it out in the future and see what that what that's like. But for this, I didn't do that. What I found is that using the backs of the napkins and the tissue paper creates a little less sturdy of a paper. So it will work, and I did that. I used all the backs of the napkins when I was finished making the faux paper with freezer paper. I had all those backs of the napkins left over, and I used it to make paper. So it did turn out. It's just that this doesn't have any tissue paper in it or any napkins. This is book page and construction paper and regular copy paper, and it has made a sturdier paper. So just sharing some of the things I've learned, and maybe that'll help you out there with your process. As with anything, I'm sure the more that I do this, the better I'll get, and the more I'll learn, like, what do I actually like to do and what do I prefer not to do with it. But I have to try it all out first to learn. If you happen to have clicked on this video and you are an expert and you're still here at this time, I would love it if you'd share with us in the comments anything about paper making that I've missed or that would be helpful for us to know. And then what you do is collect this all together. Help it go ahead and kind of drain out. It's kind of gooey. It's kind of like oatmeal. The glitter's staying in there too, mostly. It's not falling through, so that's good. And just clear any remnants out of your container that are left over and just put them in here. And kind of press that water out. Because it'd be you know, no good to waste all this. This is still a lot, and you add it to your next batch and it'll just take you that much further. So I like this idea of saving the pulp. Then just squeeze that excess water out and you'll be left with this ball of pulp that you can use next time. The papers have dried overnight. They've lightened up a lot, as they always do. I was really pleased with how these turned out. I think these are my favorite so far of what I've made. I like the tea grounds in them, and I like the look of that. And I really like the pressed flowers. So super happy, really, with this. And I'll just show you real quick each piece. Remember how these were peach? I guess because of the tea in the water, it turned them this sort of brownish color, which is okay. I really did love that peach color, but it sure did. And you know, we added these, we didn't put them in the water, but I guess just soaking it up from the paper, it changed the color. But anyway, that's okay. It's just different. That was an unexpected result. I like how from where I used book pages in this, you can see just little tidbits of words scattered throughout. That was really neat. This was the first time I used the book page. I had used the words that I cut out, but not the book pages in the slurry, so that was neat. Sometimes the dried flowers bleed into the paper and sometimes they don't. It just depends. There's another one of the peach ones that turned the brown color. And then the orange ones and the yellow ones, they stayed the same color. So you just never know what's going to happen. This one came loose, so I have to either glue it on or just use it again some other time. And this one had the words on it. I like how the little pieces of string show up in here too. And I really like the glitter. I'm glad I used more of it. It definitely is better than the first few papers I made. I didn't use enough glitter. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been helpful. And if you did, I'd love to know about it. If you make some of your own, as always, love to hear from you. Thank you to anyone who's emailed me. I really appreciate it. I love chatting with you. And I hope to see you in the next video. I hope you have a wonderful day.